Hello, everyone. Welcome today to our webinar, Elevating Accessibility and Engagement in Canvas New Quizzes with ReadSpeaker. Looks like we had quite a few of you in the waiting room ready to jump in on this webinar today. Really looking forward to seeing this great group. Everyone's starting to trickle in. Awesome. As you're joining, feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from and say hello. I'll give folks a minute or so to join the webinar, and then we'll get started with the content. Awesome. Hello. Hi, Ginger in South Carolina. Brenda's here. Oh, Deb, I'm also in Colorado. We have Canada representing. Wow. Okay. I'm not going to be able to say hello to every single one of you individually, but this is great. I'm seeing folks from many time zones. Belgium. Wow. This is great to see folks from around the US, North America, Europe, all over the world, it looks like. Well, good morning, good afternoon. It's great to see you all here. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. So it looks like we're just about a minute past, and that means I'll go ahead and kick off our housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded. We will send you the on-demand link within the next few days so you can rewatch it, forward along to your colleagues. So just remember, it's being recorded. You don't need to write every single thing down. We'll send that to you. Additionally, questions are welcome. We know this is a very exciting topic and you might have a number of questions. So please submit them to the Q&A box. We will leave time at the end for Q&A. We'll do our best to get to as many as we possibly can. Folks from both the ReadSpeaker team and the Instrcture team are going to be monitoring the chat. So behind the scenes, we have Summer, Jeff, Colleen, Aaron, who are all going to be, potentially replying to you right there, or we'll be able to directly answer them during the Q&A section. So if you're just joining, welcome. This session is being recorded. Please don't use the raise hand functionality. Do use the Q&A functionality. With that, let's dive in. I am going to start off by introducing our fantastic panelists today, starting with Paul Stisser, the VP of Education for North America on the ReadSpeaker team. And he's joined by Colleen Sandquist, the Strategic Partner Manager for ReadSpeaker. Hello, both. Let me take off my MC hat and put on my panelist hat. My name is Christina Perzada. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management here at Instrcture. My team works on all things quizzes and assessment. We have two fantastic customers with us today. We have Melanie Eddington, OT and AT service provider at Colorado State University, OT, so occupational therapy. And then we have Brian Stevens, the Director of Technology for North Carolina Virtual Public School. We're so glad that you are both here to talk about this really important and exciting topic today. All right, let me brief over our agenda so we can get started here. Today we'll be covering audio access for all, driving equity with ReadSpeaker, voice-enabled assessments, boosting engagement and reducing test anxiety. We have an exciting announcement and update about ReadSpeaker in Canvas. We will show you a demo of ReadSpeaker in new quizzes. Our last topic before Q&A will be inclusive by design, UDL in action with ReadSpeaker. Like I mentioned, there is time for Q&A at the end, so please put your questions in the Q&A box. Wow, and it's great. Thank you all for joining today. I'm seeing even more folks come on in. Okay, without further ado, let me pass the mic to Colleen for our first topic.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you to the entire Instrcture team for working so closely with the ReadSpeaker team, pulling this together. We are so excited to be here. We welcome everyone who's joining us live, and those of you who will be watching on demand. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day to join us. As we look at this first screen, audio access for all, let's take a look at the landscape of education today through the lens of equity. We're going to start taking a look at the learner journey. So when we take a look at the K-12 population, we are looking at about 15% of students receiving services under IDEA, and then an additional percentage of students that potentially are undiagnosed or having non-specific learning challenges.
I think we might have lost Colleen there.
Learners who disclosing when they get to higher ed. And that reason may be, they want to try it on their own. They want to reduce the stigma. Maybe it's difficult to navigate the landscape of higher ed when it's working with a disability service office. We don't really know why they're not disclosing, but we know that they are not disclosing at a rate that they used to. Another thing we're seeing is a deficit in agency as learners are transitioning from the K-12 space to the higher ed space. And we'll talk a little bit more about learner agency a little bit later on. And what basically that is in a nutshell, according to another great partner of ours, the CAST organization, is for learners to proactively make decisions towards their learning goals. So they are actively taking steps to accomplish goals. Well, we're seeing through an EdSurge article that learners are showing a deficit here. There's lack of participation in class. There's lack of asking for help and completing assignments. And that really speaks to kind of that learner agency, that proactivity. We're also seeing in the higher ed landscape today that our typical student is changing just a bit. Of course, we have got our learners that are traditional, that go right from high school straight into college, but we're also seeing some very diverse learners coming back to school. And so we need to be able to support these learners when they are engaging with content, either in higher ed or K-12. So on the left side of the screen, you see the word problem. Let's shift that to opportunity. The opportunity for ReadSpeaker and Canvas to come together and provide an accessible and equitable learning experience is going to benefit the learners. And we do that through integration. And so the integration of outside solutions inside the Canvas platform are immediately available to all users. And I love that Brian is on the call today because he is a tech director. He can speak directly to the ease of implementation when it comes to our solution inside Canvas. So if we're not inside the learning management system, where are we? We are outside. But when we provide learning solutions inside the Canvas environment proactively, we are providing that welcoming and rich, accessible means for learners to engage in content. And we're keeping them inside the platform. So when we provide learners support proactively, we're looking at utilizing the learning management system as the delivery mechanism. Students can choose the support that they need or they prefer without having to raise their hand or disclose that they may need something, but they can do that autonomously while they're working on their content. And of course, we are removing that barrier that may be a cost barrier. It may be a navigational barrier through the disability service offices. And we are looking at that proactive support, providing that equitable landscape. So I'm going to take just a second and we're going to go to our next screen here. So what does this look like when we talk about an integrated solution versus a browser extension. This is a very important discernment to make. So on the screen here, you can see on the left, we have natively embedded. And what that means is that the learner will have access to ReadSpeaker throughout the Canvas instance. It's a seamless user experience. It's going to be consistent and show up when and where they need it. And they also being able to provide access to an offline content through an MP3 download. We're meeting the learners where they are at, which is so important. We talked about the diverse learning population. We have back to school parents. We have first generation college students. We have people who are working and going to school at the same time. So we need to be sure that we are presenting content and enabling content that is going to best meet your learners where they are. And all of that takes place inside the Canvas instance. Now you'll notice on the right-hand side, we're looking at a typical browser extension. They don't live inside the learning management system. They live in the browser. So quite often they have difficulty getting inside and at the content that is inside the ecosystem of Canvas. So we're providing an inconsistent experience for our learners. Sometimes they can use it, sometimes they can't. Potential security risks, requiring internet access. So a very important differentiator is that ReadSpeaker is an integrated solution providing accessibility solutions and text-to-speech inside your LMS. Okay, so when we have voice-enhanced learning and engagement, we are going to provide ReadSpeaker to obviously all learners, those that need, those that prefer, and those that may have a learning preference or a difference, a temporary situation, or a need. They maybe wake up one day and they've got a migraine. We can help with that customization through engagement. So what I'd like to do now is have Brian come off mute and talk with us a little bit about how you're using ReadSpeaker inside Canvas. How did this decision come to be to go with an integrated solution, things of that nature. So I'll kick it right over to you, Brian. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, and thank you, Colleen. You spoke on so many good points. One of the biggest things, and we'll start by talking about what you meant with integrated solution. So one thing at NCVPS, we are running about 160 courses inside of Canvas. We've got about 30,000 enrollments and then around 55,000 unique enrollments. And I would say around 7,500 of those enrollments are our occupational course of study. So we have a large percentage of students who are in a blended approach to online learning. So when we talk about this and you talk about integration, it was a perfect solution for us because even in our continuity plans, we talk about interoperability. One thing that we strive to do is to keep our students inside of Canvas through a single sign-on approach. Once they are in Canvas, we do not want them to leave Canvas. ReadSpeaker is the only solution when we were going through this process that allowed that student to stay inside of Canvas. And that's done through Java, that's done through LTI. Easy configuration, works very well. And when we start talking about the learner and engagement itself, and we're looking at things like UDL, we see that it also addresses delivery and engagement. So it addresses the natural pacing of the course. Colleen also mentioned if you have to stop and the student say they have to raise their hand and get their teacher in the classroom to come read something, or they're having to go outside of Canvas to do that, there are so many barriers involved with that. Speaking on browser extensions, In the state of North Carolina, a lot of these are blocked at certain levels. So high school, not as much. They can get away with it a little bit, but if you're going into elementary and middle grades, I mean, their computers are completely locked down. So really, the option of going outside of Canvas just isn't there, and ReadSpeaker provides that. Like I said, it was just a no-brainer for us. Um, we also feel it works congruently when we talked about the natural pacing. If we're talking about writing and distributing courses, it works with that natural pace. The student and the learner is not having to do anything extra. It is right there, easy to use, fully accessible for the learner. We also have we've kind of coined the phrase here as we're talking about ReadSpeaker, the cognitive load balance. It really, if you look at the cognitive and the cognition and all the things that the student has to do as they're pacing through a virtual class, it's helping with that load balance. Um, we, uh, we coined the phrase and we just feel that it just naturally goes along with those principles. Another thing, and I'll leave it at this with this part. We feel that it brings the learner into 2025. And I say that more of a generic term. If you're thinking about having to do anything extra and going outside and not having your interoperability in 2025, you're really not, you're a little behind the eight ball when it comes to that. So we feel that ReadSpeaker does. It brings that piece into the LMS, and we feel that it eliminates that band-aid that we've had for so long through our knowledge base, through different tutorials. Hey, if this doesn't work, do this. Here's this type of immersive reader. You can't vet it. You're constantly having to change it because a third-party free browser is not there anymore. It's just a cat and mouse game, and we are just thrilled that we do not have to do that anymore. And like I said, and vet the tools that are not directly in the LMS.
Thank you, Brian. Really, really some important points there. And also when we're looking at a browser extension, students don't necessarily know where to get it, how to get it, how do I log in, when do I use it, what are parts of the tools. The ReadSpeaker solution is simple, user-friendly, everything is right there. It's basically just a click and listen. Melanie, hi there. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here today. So we're shifting over to a higher ed perspective. So Melanie, why don't you come on off mute and tell our attendees how Colorado State is using ReadSpeaker to increase that engagement and help learners engage in content. How did you come to the decision to come with ReadSpeaker?
Absolutely. So I work in the Assistive Technology Resource Center at Colorado State University, which is a pretty unique situation in higher ed. So I get to work directly with students and employees with disabilities at CSU. When we're working with students with a variety of disabilities, we often identify that they need a text-to-speech tool. We've been providing services at the ATRC for about 30 years. So we've tried a lot of text-to-speech tools. We have a lot of options that we get to pull from and really specify that to the learner's needs. And the 2022-2023 school year is when we started adding ReadSpeaker as one of those primary options that we're providing. And the most significant benefit of this compared to some of the other text-to-speech tools that we recommend is that it is embedded in Canvas, and students do not have to identify as having a disability or schedule a meeting with us, although we love when they do. So it's great that every student at CSU has the opportunity to use ReadSpeaker with or without our training. And then when we get to do our one-on-one occupational therapy services with students, this is daily something that we recommend for students with dyslexia or ADHD or low vision, right? So any number of diagnoses, it's easy to use, it's reliable. A lot of students, if I say, would you like me to show you something else right now? They're like, nope, this is in Canvas. I know how to use it. I like it. I get it. Bye. And I'll say, okay, I'll see you at the end of the semester to check in, which is so great to know that we can provide a tool that is free to the student that is very user friendly. And then, when they're going to take quizzes, something that's already embedded, it's very important for these students to be able to use their preferred assistive technology. And so having that ability to have that built in, very accessible, benefits students so much. And we have the data to back this up, that we are helping with students' GPAs and retention in courses. And so the satisfaction is really high. So it's really great to be able to recommend this one-on-one to students with disabilities, and also hear the broader campus community is just using this really robustly.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for sharing. You said a couple of things. So you said their students preferred assistive technology. How are they preferring to engage in content? You also mentioned data, which is, I'm sure, accumulated on, you're collecting your own data points. ReadSpeaker also collects activations. So it's great to have that additional piece to bring into your data matrix. So that's fantastic. Before we move on, I would like to actually go back to you, Melanie, because you work with students one-on-one in the Resource Center here or at Colorado State. Can you talk with us a little bit about ReadSpeaker and the impact that it has on learner agency, on that social emotional piece, on developing that autonomy and independence?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the best parts of my job, is having a student at any stage in their learning journey. Maybe it's an incoming freshman straight from high school, maybe it's an adult learner. So oftentimes they're referred to us, and I see them for this kind of intake appointment, and they might be lacking that sense of agency or direction, and feel very overwhelmed by the amount of readings they've been assigned. And we know this is a critical piece of this learning process, and synthesizing those readings. And for whatever reason, disability specific, I think dyslexia is a great example, that I might have a student who is brilliant and doing well in every class, but because reading is such a struggle and they have to take this English lit class, they are feeling defeated and falling behind, and that is impacting their mental health. And so it is so lovely to be able to discuss, like, have you ever tried audiobooks? Like, do you listen to podcasts? Do you like learning in that way? And if they say yes, I'm like, well, let's look at this option for you. And I think it's so satisfying to watch them realize that this is an option for them, a very accessible option that they can use with all of their readings that are typically already in Canvas. Just bring them right over. And it's very empowering for them to then have control over how they learn in a method that works for their brains. And then getting into the fun features like highlighting and extracting those notes. And there's so many specifications that we get to show student by student. And I think it benefits their autonomy, their success in school. And again, with that data, we get the pleasure of seeing them throughout their learning career, their academic career, and get to see that this tool continues to work, and they use it and they're listening to it constantly, and it's really benefiting their comprehension.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that, because we know how important that social emotional piece for engagement in school, for the mental health. I love that you brought that up, because we want to be sure that we are supporting learners academically, but also the whole person, and how tightly they go together, the emotional and mental well-being along with the academic piece. So fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let's get on to our next slide here. And so we are going to be talking a little bit about voice to improve focus and reduced text anxiety. So perfect segue, talking about, the mental health of our learners. And I can speak, I have got text anxiety. I had it when I was younger. Whenever there is something where I need to, step up and prove and take a test, there is that anxiety. There's that adrenaline that comes through. So when we take a look at the assessment piece available throughout Canvas, we have our classic quizzes and we also have our new quizzes. And ReadSpeaker has not had access to new quizzes. So what we're seeing is that it's an inconsistent experience for our learners. They have support in one area, they didn't have support in another area. And a lot of times for faculty, if the courses are being designed, they're not even really sure if it's a new quiz, if it's a classic quiz. So again, that inconsistent experience. Brian said it beautifully. We want to keep the learners inside the Canvas LMS. We don't want them searching for support outside. We want to keep them inside where they have seamless access. And also, we talked about the limitations of the browser extensions. But when we think about the integrated piece of ReadSpeaker as we transition, excuse me, into the new quizzes, we are going to be fulfilling in the 612 environment, we are going to be fulfilling that read aloud support without the cost or inefficiencies of a human with a child or a student reading. So they'll have access to that themselves. In addition to the text to speech, there are other supports available, accessibility supports. We have enlarged font. There are color choices. Melanie had mentioned that. These options are customizable by the learner, so they can develop their own personalized learning experience. And we also have got, we are compatible with some of those proctoring solutions when we talk about assessments in the higher ed realm. So I'm going to start with Brian. We're going to go back to our client presenters. And Brian, talk to us about how you have solved the inability for ReadSpeaker to access new quizzes.
Well, I mean, we talk about, I said it earlier, the Band-Aid. I mean, we have had to Band-Aid solutions. We have had to bring additional contractors on to fill some of the gaps. It's been a long road. So I mean, this is going to help us. I can't even put a value on how much this is going to help. I always go back and when I give this example, and I've said it to some of our ReadSpeaker support. We go to that 6th or 7th grade learner who already has, and we're talking about OCS. We're talking about maybe a self-contained student in a course. And the way we run that blended approach is we have a certified online teacher and then a certified in-class teacher with the student. A lot of these teachers were having to read aloud. We've had printouts, just a lot of different ways to do it. We had some vetted third-party tools that would do somewhat of the job, but not fulfilling it, as said, the Band-Aid. We go back to that learner. We look at the 6th and 7th grader who is in this situation. They have IEPs, they have 504s, they have labels that, as Colleen had mentioned earlier, that maybe have not been reported, along with the digital accessibility. And we think about them, just the ability to log in, just to get to the course, just to get to where we need them to be, the time that takes, the effort, the energy it takes, and then for them to get to a quiz and it not work. And they need that. And I love Melanie's comment about the autonomy of them having the autonomy to use these tools, in the course without raising your hand or saying, I need this, or to go pick something out. For it to not to work for them, that it's going to be an absolute game changer. And I did this last night, and I'll throw this tidbit in that we did a lot of studies, and the attention span now for that learner is only about 6 to 7 seconds. So we think about 6 to 7 seconds. We only get them, and we only get around 7 seconds to engage them. So if that's beyond that 6 or 7 seconds, we could lose them and they may shut down. They may just log out and just get so frustrated that they're done for the day. And we see some of that data. So this is, as I said, it's going to be a game changer for us to have this work with the quiz integration.
Thank you, Brian.
Mhm.
Melanie, over to you. Can you take just a couple minutes and share with us how you have maneuvered this situation?
Absolutely. So our process, we get students referred from the Student Disability Center to us, and then we recommend their assistive tech and they implement it, we check in. And if we are recommending a piece of assistive tech for testing, we kind of send that back over to the Student Disability Center who work with the testing center, right? So I'm not proctoring or working directly with testing, but what's really important is that when I make a recommendation for a text-to-speech software, I have to know that a student is going to be able to use it with their tests and quizzes. So it's, historically difficult or inconsistent. And so it's been so great to know, even if they have a different preferred text to speech, that we have something reliable in the testing center that works in Canvas quizzes. Um, and again, so usable and accessible that even if a student is using it for the first time, we can walk them through that uh, and make their testing experience positive. And again, I think what's so cool is universal design wise that the entire campus has access to this, but more directly with my client services. That if this is a recommendation that we or the Student Disability Center has said, like, yes, the student really needs voice access for their quizzes, that we know that we can use that. Um, so just it's an accessibility concern that we really are invested in.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Paul Stisser, I'm going to pass it over to you, and I would love for you to speak about your experiences. You've been with ReadSpeaker a long time. Talk to us about the partnership.
Yeah, first, it's a very exciting time for us. I want to thank Instrcture and Christina's team for definitely seeing the need, listening to our joint client base, and addressing this. I always say, if you can make your platform or ReadSpeaker more inclusive, it's going to be a win all over. And this is basically what this is going to be addressing. We've heard over the years from our install base that sometimes they didn't know if it was classic or new quizzes. And then you get into other aspects in that ecosystem, and ReadSpeakers, is trying to find the most inclusive way of doing that. One way that we have, and it will continue to be supported, whether it's in classic or new quizzes, is ReadSpeaker working with proctoring tools. I have to give a shout out to our friends at Respondus, because over the years, Scott and his team has worked really hard with ReadSpeaker and Canvas in providing, let's say, workarounds. Now, with ReadSpeaker being natively inside of whether it's classic or new quizzes, and we're sitting at that content level, and the Respondus lockdown browser or HonorLock or Proctorial, they're going to be sitting on top as kind of that policeman. We're going to be really providing accommodations to all of those learners, but also providing and enhancing academic integrity regarding protecting the assessment in different areas of that nature. I'm also real excited about whether it's supporting HTML content or documents. ReadSpeaker is going to be addressing in supporting that inside the environment too. So it's a very important time for us. We've listened to our users, and I think this is one of the big boxes that we are checking.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Paul. Without further ado, I am going to, is this correct? This is correct. Slide 8. Oh, Christina, over to you.
Thanks, Colleen. Wow, just in reflecting what you all have been sharing, panelists, I'm hearing two big themes. One is empowerment, and the other is ease of use. And those are so important to us here at Instrcture. We are here to empower and support all learners and educators. And good products should just be easy to use and so intuitive. And that's one of the North Stars that we hold on my product team. And the feedback has not been subtle that New Quizzes has been missing this ReadSpeaker integration. You all have called it out as imperative for you to deliver high quality education that's accessible and equitable to your learners. And we've heard that, and I'm so thrilled that we are unlocking this great value so that you have a consistent and efficient experience for your learners. New Quizzes has been under development for quite some time and has tons of amazing, awesome features. And one of the blockers that we've heard from some folks in terms of adopting New Quizzes and really switching was this piece, right? This integration natively with ReadSpeaker. So we've heard you. We're very happy that we've been able to team up with the ReadSpeaker team to now offer ReadSpeaker natively within New Quizzes. So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. A video's got to be worth more than that. So we're going to click to the next slide, and one of the engineers on our quizzes team has put together a quick demo to show you what this is going to look like, and then I'll unveil the dates. So let's listen in. I think the sound might be a bit quiet here, but lean in for a demo.
Hi everyone. Over the past few weeks, we've been working on changes to New Quizzes. This update allows ReadSpeaker to access the quiz content, which was previously inaccessible. Let me select some text and click Listen to demonstrate this to you.
What is the recommended percentage of your income that financial experts suggest saving each month? 5%, 10 to 20%, 30%, 50%.
As you could see, both the reading and the scrolling works in New Quizzes.
Awesome. So this was previously a limitation with how New Quizzes was built as an LTI with the iframe. So we've made the requisite adjustments here to now support this. We are currently in our partner preview, so we're working closely with both ReadSpeaker and proctoring providers to ensure that this is all running extremely seamlessly for you all. This is coming to public beta on December 15th, so in just under a month, you all will be able to get access. I know Brian says he has folks who they've marked it on their calendar, they're ready to get in there. And because it's coming right around the holidays, what we're going to do is run a slightly longer beta just to make sure that everybody has requisite time with the holidays and some time off and semester starts. So GA is coming February 13th, 2026. You will be able to start seeing this in beta December 15th in just about 3.5 weeks. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Colleen for our final section before Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. I don't know about everybody else in the room, but I'm super excited. This has been a long time coming, and we are thrilled at the work that the Instrcture team has done. So I'm just going to quickly go over the alignment of universal design. You can learn more about the universal design for learning philosophies and guidelines at cast.org. You will also see ReadSpeaker on their website, so you can take a quick demo there if you would like. So what you're seeing here on the screen is these are the universal design for learning guidelines. 3.0 came out not this June, but the June before. So there has been a couple of thematic shifts. But what you're seeing here is the columns that are running vertical talk about the multiple means of fill in the blank: engagement, representation, action, and expression. So as you come down, you are going to see different points and different pieces of this framework that we are looking to incorporate into our design, into our instruction. And so we have those columns running vertically. You'll also notice across the grid is access, support, and executive function. So not only is there information running horizontal, but it's also running vertical. When we talk about access, creating accessible learning environments, supporting learners in a meaningful way. That's that engagement piece. How am I engaging with that content? And then the building and understanding and that learner agency. When you pull all of those pieces together, we're really empowering the learner to take a step towards their learning goals. So I do encourage you to take a look at this and learn just a little bit more about universal design. So when we talk about the ReadSpeaker solutions aligning with the Universal Design for Learning guidelines, you can see here, and I'm not going to read everything that's going on because I know that we've got some Q&A that we need to get to, but you can see the alignment of the integrated solutions with the representation, right? How is the content being represented? I'm honoring different forms of learning. There are translation tools. Our voices have different dialects and languages. When we get to engagement, we're looking at a space where learners feel like they belong. There's that integration again. Everybody has access. Everybody's doing it. So let's keep going. And then action and expression, honoring different forms of communication, interacting with the accessibility features and things of that nature. So great way for your learners to interact with ReadSpeaker and supporting those universal guidelines for learning as your courses and content is being developed. So I am going to I guess stop sharing and we'll go to Q&A.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Great. So I'm going to be facilitating our Q&A today. Let me go ahead and read this first question. This is from a customer who says, we use ReadSpeaker and currently it does not read equations from the Canvas equation editor correctly. Is this something that will be improved in the future for instructors to check accessibility and students using it for accommodations?
I would like to answer that. So I can say that that is on our roadmap and we're expecting to have that released. Our first priority was getting Canvas new quizzes implemented. And then technically what's going to happen is our first release will be reading math inside of files or documents, whether it's PDFs or Word docs, because we are hearing from student accessibility services, people are coming in with assessments inside of, on a sheet of paper, not in new quizzes. So this is an easy fix for us. The second one will be WebReader will be having a feature that is, let's just say, makes it math reading, a math reader, because the math reader and just the HTML reader are significantly different, which would answer the advanced math settings. So we're expecting that in early 2026, let's say spring. It is a high priority, but new quizzes was number one.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Let me go ahead and read our next question here. How does ReadSpeaker differ from using Immersive Reader or another screen reader? Paul, I think this one might be for you as well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you heard in today's call, the common theme of inclusion, good design, a lot of Immersive Reader is very limited. It's it's in pages, but what about discussions? What about quizzes? Where does the student go to receive that reader functionality? There has to be another one because right now there's that gap. So what we like to think of ourselves as a more comprehensive tool to support to read all of Canvas, of all content inside of Canvas. And the end user doesn't have to worry about a device or a browser that they're on.
Yeah, really, it's that native integration piece that's so key. Definitely. Here's another one. Are there any adjustments required to existing integrations to access this new feature, this new ReadSpeaker and new quizzes integration?
We don't believe so. We're in the early stages of evaluating it now. I always say ReadSpeaker is a proactive tool, but traditionally it's reactionary because when that content is published, there isn't anything you have to do except the end user or the faculty to press play and listen. So with the native environment, no.
Great, thank you. We've answered a number of questions written out. I think the only other open question that we have is a request for us to play the video again, but this time in full screen. So Colleen, let's see if we can pull that off. Let's see if we can reshare that particular slide and go into full screen mode if possible. And if not, maybe folks can view it in the recording.
Yeah, so I am in full screen here, but I think the video was embedded inside the screen, so I don't think I can make it any bigger, but I'm happy to play it again.
Let's do that. Let's make sure folks can get another look at that.
So if I can just say a couple of things to be on the lookout, be on the lookout for is the word by word highlighting. We are going to read the question and then the answer, and then we're going to stop. And we're going to let the student process, answer the question, and then when they're ready, they can highlight and listen again. So we are meeting the student where they're at. And so be on the lookout for that. And I think that's about it.
Also, as Colleen is pulling this up, there is that, I always say proof is in the pudding to evaluate it in your instance, whether you reach out to your Canvas team or the ReadSpeaker team. We're more than willing on December 15th to offer that. So.
Hi everyone. Over the past few weeks, we've been working on changes to new quizzes. This update allows ReadSpeaker to access the quiz content, which was previously inaccessible. Let me select some text and click Listen to demonstrate this to you.
What is the recommended percentage of your income that financial experts suggest saving each month? 5%, 10 to 20%, 30%, 50%.
As you could see, both the reading and the scrolling works in new quizzes.
Thank you so much. Another thing that I would also like to call out is that typically in the quiz environment, the translation and dictionary are removed by default. Because this is a dev instance, you are seeing it there, but we remove those features because we are, as Paul mentioned, maintaining the integrity of that assessment. Having said that, we can customize what that looks like for your particular institution. If you want the dictionary there, we can turn it on for you. If you want the translation there, we can turn it on for you. So that customization is available at the learner level for their preferences, and also at the institution level, if there are some needs that you would like to share with us, we'll do what we can to customize that for you.
Thanks, Colleen. We have a couple more questions that have come through. So folks, if you have questions, use that Q&A box and we'll make sure to get to those in our final few minutes here. There is a question that came in and it was written in Spanish. And while I speak some Spanish, I've translated it and I will be answering in English here. So the question is about the beta version that's coming on December 15th. Is that going to be enabled by default in that environment for testing purposes, or does this customer need to request activation? And I can answer part of this by saying, if you already have ReadSpeaker, it will just be available. You don't need to request further activation. But Paul and Colleen, what should folks do if they don't have ReadSpeaker and they would like to get ReadSpeaker?
Well, they can definitely reach out to ReadSpeaker team and go to our website and fill out a contact form. Or I'm sure Colleen's contact information is, she can also put it in the chat and reach out. Basically, we can provide a complimentary sandbox to evaluate it to make sure it addresses all your expectations. And we can go from there.
Thanks, Paul. A couple of other questions are flowing through. I'm going to read this one next. It would be nice for our students to be able to use the translation for most tests, but then in foreign language classes, not to have the translation there. I definitely hear that distinction in use case. Is it or could it be a function that teachers can decide based on the assessment?
Oh, those foreign language courses. Yeah, we hear that a lot. We want to, I think as we get a little bit more granular with our integration, as we update it, I believe that is something that is a priority. The ability to go in, whether it's at the course level or at the unit level, those are all different things that we want to make available. And right at this time, it is not. So the foreign language can be turned on, but at the course level and go from there. So it is something that is on our roadmap, and we're starting to hear more and more about it, but we're hoping that we can get that in one of our upcoming versions.
Thank you, Paul. Here's another one. Earlier in the presentation, I heard it mentioned that ReadSpeaker will be able to read math language in spring 2026. What are the current capabilities on that front? And what math languages would the question need to be written in? MathJax, LaTeX, etc.
So ideally right now, if it is written in attached for LaTeX and MathJax, and the quote unquote math dictionary is turned on your ReadSpeaker end, it should read it. Some of that comes into the good design aspect of it. Our goal on the other end, let's say in our upcoming version, would be let's define it as like a math OCRing tool to where it would OCR it and upload it. And of course, MathJax and OR is probably the right way of doing that. If you are in your current Canvas instance, you have to remember to right click it for the CSS and then or reach out to us and we can provide you. It is a couple steps, but ReadSpeaker can read it out, and we can go from there.
Thank you. Another question here. How does ReadSpeaker do with graphics questions?
Once again, it's about good design, how it's laid out. Are you expecting us to work as an OCRing tool? Sometimes I see a lot of saved images, but we can read alt text. So as long as there is content and you have a proper displayed reading order, we will be able to read the alt text and go from there.
Thank you.
I believe that's what they were referring to.
Great. With this new update, will highlighting text, including images, also read the alt text of images in all types of lessons, not just new quizzes?
Yes, but we have to make sure that the alt tag is of the image inside the graphic. Go from there. It will not OCR it if it's a quote unquote saved image, but it would read it. Yes.
Great. Here comes a two-parter. One part is feedback, one part is a question. So just reinforcing the feedback that it would be really helpful to allow teachers to set the translation option on an individual quiz or student level. So reinforcing a point we heard earlier. And then here's the question. If we don't already have ReadSpeaker, is this an integration that we would need to purchase to see in Canvas for that December beta release and the February GA release?
So I completely agree on the foreign language component, having that flexibility. Yes, as we move to our next version, that is our goal to get there. However, new quizzes was the most important. OCR stands for optical character recognition. I know that was a question that came out. And Christine, I apologize. What was the second half of the question?
If we don't already have ReadSpeaker, is this an integration that we would need to purchase to see in Canvas for this beta release in December and the GA release in February?
So ReadSpeaker would provide a complementary sandbox to evaluate it, to where you can try it out, to roll it out to the masses. We are a third-party product, and you would be required to purchase it. However, we will allow you to evaluate it, in a complementary practice inside your instance, whether it's sandbox or even pre-production in those environments.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was all of the questions that were inputted into the Q&A box. I want to thank all of the panelists so much for being here today and providing such valuable insights about products, about experiences. And to those of you watching this on demand, thank you for tuning in. And we all look forward to hearing from you and supporting you. We're really excited about this.